Welcome back to Adulthood, friends. This is the discussion-based podcast where two former childhood acquaintances, now friends, discuss the things that adverb.
Jacob,
you want to think of another adverb?
Preposterously.
Preposterous.
Preposterously.
Oh, I don't think we've used that. Have we?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think
know.
so. Okay. Preposterous.
Things that preposterously matter. Preposterously, that's your adverb of the week.
And I'm Aya.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Jacob.
Jacob, I could see he hated that. Like, he's like, I don't want to do that thing where I go, and I'm Jacob.
You know what it felt like? It's kind of like in Hamilton where there's Peggy. There's the two Schuyler sisters, right? And there's like
Peggy. I never saw Hamilton.
I haven't seen it yet either.
It doesn't matter. It's not. There's these two sisters. They're very big, but they have a third sister, and she just goes, and Peggy, and like that's all she gets.
Oh.
Like a joke. Like, and Jacob.
So that was your joke that you got. And Jacob.
And Jacob.
And Jacob.
And this is episode 58, where we'll be continuing our discussion on gun violence with special guest Jacob Tanenbaum. Is that your last name?
Correct.
Yes.
The Royal Tanenbaum with us right here.
Royal Tanenbaum, yes. And we're continuing our discussion.
Main causes behind gun violence. How do we effectively reduce gun violence while respecting individual rights? And is it justifiable to infringe on certain rights to ensure greater public safety? Those are kind of our main overarching questions, but it looks like we're going to get into a lot.
And should Canadians discuss American policy? Oh, wait,
Tell us what you really think about that, Jacob.
It's okay if 2 of the 3 Canadians are also American in this group.
But we're all Jews, so that...
That means what?
It means something else. I don't know. It means that do countries actually consider us part of their country if we all have our own, like...
Dual loyalty? What?
Isn't there a thing where, like, Jews are considered, like, not true any other of...
Yeah, that's a problem.
They're not truly of any other nationality because we have our own, like our
that's right.
Dual loyalties kind of thing.
It's an old trope.
Yeah, it's a good old trope. We need to have guns. That's what we need.
No, I think the only thing to protect the Jews is guns, right? That's what Israel's all about, right?
That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I do appreciate having Israel.
You know,
would the Holocaust have happened if all the Jews had guns?
I know you're saying that as a joke,
but
you know what?
But actually, that's one of
it wouldn't.
That's like that's actually a major talking point for the pro-gun thing, which is that one of Hitler's first measures was actually taking guns away from Jews. So,
I didn't know that. Yikes!
It's true. Let's say we start this music already. God damn it!
Yes, please. Oh, Jesus Christ! And we're back.
It's so fucking good to be back.
All right, where were we?
Okay. So what kinds of guns are okay to you, Jacob? Like, I know you're talking about the differences between pistols and rifles.
I feel like we're ganging up on you now. I hope it doesn't feel that way.
No, it's okay. No,
I do enjoy your banter, and all right.
I don't feel like we're ganging up. I actually am looking to you as an authority in a sense, Jacob, because you have so much knowledge on this. And whether or not we disagree on certain elements, you have knowledge that I keep. Mm-hmm. That's why I feel like I'm asking you these questions.
Also, you can gang up, but you have no guns. So it's, to me...
Oh, that's a great question. Do you have guns, Jacob?
Did you own a gun?
Wow, this is going to make me look really bad, only because I literally have one right here.
Really?
But it's a coincidence in the sense of...
Is it a functional gun?
Yeah, so this is what I'm about to say. So this is my grandfather's rifle from World War II, which actually is seen in active shooter, but there's no firing pin. It's completely safe.
Right.
It's, there's no bullets.
Wait, so how do you protect yourself if someone breaks into your apartment or house?
You can just look like you have a gun to just scare them off.
That's right.
Wait, what war was your grandfather in?
World War II.
Like, who was he? Was he Canadian? Were you? I don't know what year. I know you're Jewish, but
he is American. So I was born in Canada, but both my sides are from America, and both my grandparents served in World War II.
Okay, does that not also contribute to some of your feeling? Maybe
Jacob has a huge knowledge, huge knowledge of wars and the world wars. Like we could probably ask him about that, and he could talk for hours.
And you have generations of Americans living in the U.S. I think that also adds to feeling some pride of, not pride, but maybe feeling like you...
Oh, you're psychoanalyzing him.
Oh, yeah, this is great.
No, I just mean, I get it a little more. I think I feel less connected to my country.
Wouldn't you love to have in your house a rifle that literally shot at Nazis? I mean, come on. I
would love it. Yeah, no, that I get. I think we all can relate
by
to
a
that.
Jewish American soldier.
Amazing. I love it. Yeah.
Come on.
I think we all need one of those.
Don't take this away from me, Aya.
No, I would never. I don't want to take that one away from you, but you also can use that.
It has no firing pin, Jacob. That doesn't even count. Do you have a gun that can fire?
Do they still sell the bullets for those? Like that's a war artifact. That's an artifact, not a function. Like I don't know. Maybe it could be functional.
In all seriousness, I wouldn't want to answer it on a public podcast.
Fair enough.
Oh, I see.
But what I would say is that if someone were to invade my house, that I would use whatever I had to defend myself.
Okay.
I think Sweetie, your dog, would do a good enough job.
Well, I have a dog too. Yeah, let me be clear. It's not that I think, well, you say, you met Sweetie. I don't know if that's true or not. She's called Sweetie, by the way.
She's called Sweetie. I was like, well, I don't know how that doesn't sound like a vicious dog, unless it's like an ironic sort of thing.
She's protected.
No,
I've walked in there before.
What type of dog is she?
She's a border collie shepherd mix. No, she definitely looks the part.
Okay, that's a potential defense dog. Like that's.
And actually, I will say that I would suggest that first before anyone considers a firearm is get a dog, because that alone is just a great. I used to have issues in general, just sleeping. I had like sleep paralysis and stuff like that. I will say, since having the dog, no, I don't have any sleep paralysis issues normally, simply because I feel just so much more at ease. I know that if I fall asleep, the dog is there and will wake up at a twig outside the house. That said, that's great because 99% of the times it's a twig, it's a neighbor. There's a 1% chance that it's the next night stalker. I don't know.
Your area is a little dangerous sometimes, right?
It's actually just as dangerous as anywhere else in LA. I've looked this up. The crime. It's funny because you live also in a kind of an area that's considered dangerous. There is violence, but in those statistics, you have to look at, in LA specifically, how much of it is actually violence, homeless on homeless, or that kind of situation where you can look at a very violent area. How much of it is actually affecting people in their homes? It can kind of muddy the waters, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So if you look at a map of LA, you'll see all these, every 2 seconds there's a terrible thing happening. And the sad part is, the truth of the matter is that unless it's like gang related, most times it's actually violence against homeless people.
By homeless people.
Often.
Yeah. Not only.
I guess. I don't know if there's groups of people who are just attacking homeless people, but yeah, they're the most. Anyway, so that can skew why in cities you look at, wow, this neighborhood is just as dangerous as this neighborhood. It's like, maybe, I don't know. For the record, I live in Echo Park, which is up and down.
Didn't someone try to burn your house down like twice or three times? 3 times, yeah.
What?
3 times someone has lit a tree on fire in our neighborhood, a homeless person. Anyways, yeah, it's a big problem.
So what are 2 alternatives to using guns for safety then?
Well, like I said, I think a dog. I think cameras now are good. And also, let's talk about, so what do you do if, let's say you don't have a gun and you have the security camera and someone still, has intent to come in, or by the time you realize it, it's a little too late, right? They're already breaking in. So then what do? You call the police. So then we'd have to have a police that also is going to, show up, is going to answer, isn't overwhelmed. I've called the police for various things along the years. And even if it's an emergency, you can be put on hold for 10 minutes before even talking to someone. And we're talking in LA that has a lot of, it's a pretty large police force, also a lot of crime to deal with, a lot of, patrolling and incidents to respond to. So I get it. But at the same time, it's not like we have such a robust system that if something is going down, that you can just depend on the police, who aren't always, by the way, great at even knowing what they're walking into. It's not a diss on the police. I just mean that the difficulties of the job is that you really don't know until you're already there. Like, they're often figuring it out as they're going.
One of the things that was brought up in that Jon Stewart video too was like, because this guy was basically trying to argue that more guns equals more safety, even though the statistics do not show this.
No.
He was like, yeah, just give everyone more guns and that should make everything more safe.
No.
And he's like, well, then why do you think the police enter some premises that have a stockpile of guns? Do they not go, we're good, guys, we're feeling real safe today, we don't need nothing to worry about here? It's because I think it perpetuates even police reacting. If police are taught to be afraid of you having a gun even, so just having them can put you in danger. Do you think it's possible that owning a gun can actually put you in more danger, even if you don't use it incorrectly, but just somebody, like the police showing up and seeing you with it or seeing you have it could put your life in danger?
In theory, yes. And this is also partly why, there's a counter argument for why we should register guns. It might be good for the police to know, for instance, if they're, let's say you call them and you're saying, hey, come over here, someone breaking into my house. Maybe it's good that they know that you have a gun and have an idea of who you are so that they don't, mistake you.
For the person breaking into your house. So like, oh, there's the guy breaking in, and it's actually you just protecting your house, which has happened a lot, actually, where police or whatever have attacked the person who actually lives there, thinking that's the person breaking in.
And it also hasn't stopped. I mean, I know Josh, you and I talked about this off this discussion, but it hasn't also stopped the police from just shooting you if you don't. There's a million cases of that, but the one that always kind of stood out to me, just particularly, just was, I don't even understand it, was guy was kind of drunk or something, and he was in a room and was ordered to come out by the police, and they had literally a rifle on him, and he was 15, 20 feet away, and he was on his stomach and drunk. Zero threat. And they shot him.
Oh, that one really, really, really upset me. To this day,
What?
Yeah.
This was a video. I watched this video and I'm
haunted
by it. Yeah, this guy, I think, he called the police, right? Or somebody else, maybe somebody else called the police. I don't remember. But like the police showed up and they started giving him conflicting commands, like roll over on your left, your other left, put your right hand by your left leg. And he's also a little bit tipsy because he was drinking with his girlfriend or something. And
crawling on the ground when you're really drunk and with the police, it's going to make you even more disoriented, for the record.
Yeah, he's just rolling around trying to do the right thing. And he's like, I don't understand. I'm trying. Should I do this or that? And then he went to pull his pants up because he was on the ground and his pants were coming down, and they shot him a bunch of times and killed him.
At extremely close distance with rifles.
I mean, we've talked about gun violence in terms of mass shootings, but what about gun violence in terms of police shootings?
That's a whole extra thing.
Not that I wouldn't want to answer it, but just what I will say is that your question on, well, does it put you more at risk to have a gun? And I'm like, I don't know, because maybe the police should also have better training on when to pull their triggers.
Yes,
that's definitely true.
Like, why are you coming from the assumption that, I think part of the issue is that they're the ones who are taught to unload their entire clip, because legally speaking, what difference does it make anyways? Like, there's things like that.
Because they were reaching.
So when police fire a gun, once they fire the first shot, legally for them, it's the same as shooting all of the shots.
Weird.
They don't have to think about each shot. But to be clear, that's not true for the average citizen. So for instance, if there was someone coming to your house and they're breaking through your door and they say, I'm going to kill you, and you have it on video, right? And you shoot them once, right? Good. If you were then to unload your clip, depending on the timing of it, questionable, not so much.
A lot of people do, though. Apparently, I'm always surprised when I read about it, but a lot of people seem to unload their clips on people. It's never just he shot him once. It's always like he shot him 9 times.
Well, if you're,
because they're scared and then just bang, 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 right? They start shooting that thing.
Yeah, you're not talking about a rational moment here. You're talking your heightened sense of fear and your life is on the line. And
I do think that body cameras have been a huge improvement to things, and more of that is good and helpful to see what's going on to keep police in check. Because, we're talking about gun violence, and there's obviously a lot of gun violence happening on the side of police here, and it's not the same everywhere, right? Like, police in Britain often are running around with batons and pepper spray, right? Or whatever. Like,
that's a bit of it's a very Monty Python perspective of what the British police are like. I know there's videos of them talking down people. There's also videos of a great American policing talking down people.
There's not a lot of police shootings in Britain.
They have different problems, but sure.
No, they often don't have guns even. A lot of them don't. Only some of them have guns, I think.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure only some of them have guns.
They have a different culture, though.
There's just less guns all around. The people don't have them. The police don't have them. Like, it just makes everybody safer, because when something does go wrong...
Yeah, but look at their stabbings.
Sure.
Stabbings, it's way harder to kill people with stabbings, right? Like, there are a lot of things like that.
So many people use this argument. I hate that.
What?
They'll say, should we take everyone's knives away then? Because knives have killed people. You could go do a mass stabbing rampage. It's like, you can, but
no, I didn't say that. I said from the perspective.
I'm not saying you're saying that. You're not saying that.
Yeah,
just like people say that.
No, the mass incident level in the US is the issue, right? But when it comes to just something that can be used to hurt you and kill you, whatever, there is actually maybe even a cultural preference for knives in England, and there's reasons for that too. And the stabbing thing is ridiculous. By the way, not my quote, but my fiance, who went through Krav Maga, and her trainer, he said, if I had to choose between having a gun pulled on me or a knife, I would actually choose the gun, because I know, and that was my kind of reaction too. But in the sense that if there wasn't some distance between you, okay, if there's more than 5 or 10 feet, obviously you don't want to have a gun. But at the same time, guns in a situation of a mass shooting where they're, in a closed space and picking their targets, it's a lot easier in a way than a reality of someone pulling a gun on you. They miss a lot, and if you do get shot, there's a different type of chance of survival, as opposed to in a knife fight, there's nobody who gets knifed once. You're going to get knifed multiple times. And even in order to get that knife away, you're going to be cut up.
I hear what you're saying.
I feel like
that was a self-defense perspective.
I would absolutely take a knife over a gun on me any day of the week.
He's a Krav Maga guy. I'm saying I'm not the Krav Maga.
I feel like that's a thing that a Krav Maga guy says for like
someone who knows how to fight.
I'd prefer a gun over and then it's like, ooh, why is that? Like that seems like that's like a very I'm so tough.
That sounds like that guy just wanted to say something like a tough guy thing.
I agree. That's what I felt.
Well, I don't think anyone wants to get shot, but I do. Well, I mean, it's a good question here.
You ever heard bringing a knife to a gunfight? I think there's
between the two.
There's a saying about that.
I'd still rather get stabbed than shot, I think. Unless
I know, but that
depends where though.
That's the argument.
You can survive stabbings much more easily than you can survive gunshots.
That's the argument, actually. We'd have to. I don't want to say definitively one way or the other, but I will say this: the argument that he was making is you can get shot. Getting stabbed means that you're not getting stabbed once. You're probably getting stabbed 2 dozen times.
You might get shot a bunch of times.
Yeah, you might get shot a ton. We just said that people empty their clips on people, though. But how isn't it easier to go than to go like junk?
You have to use force with a knife over and over again. And while people can do that and have done that, it's easier to survive in the sense that you don't have to use any force with a gun in that sense. You just pull the trigger and it does all the force itself. I mean, you can look at a scenario.
I mean, I agree with you, by the way, in that sense.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying it's more of interest. It's not really that I condone the argument here because I'm not coming like that. I'm just saying.
I think she should get a different Krav Maga t-shirt.
It's interesting.
That guy sounds nuts.
No, I think if everybody had a knife for protection, I think that is much safer. I think everybody should have a knife for protection in their house.
Well, statistically speaking, I think even with knives...
We most do, even if we just have kitchen knives, right?
That's exactly, because you know what? It's not meant just as a weapon. It's meant to cut up your food.
Could I use my gun to cut up food?
I could be wrong about this, but you can fact check it. That for the issue with the knife, actually, and why people say it's better to have like a taser or something like that, is that in most incidents where you're having to defend your life, the knife could actually be used against you, as opposed to a gun. So if you actually are in a position to defend yourself with a gun, the chances of that person overcoming you, subduing you, and using that gun against you is minimal, which is actually why active shooters are so dangerous, right? It's because you can't just charge them. There's a lot of people who've tried and they haven't been able to, and very brave people, by the way. But with a knife, on the other hand, let's say you're caught off guard and you're pulling out a knife, the person who's already intent on harming you might be more ready than you are and will actually end up using that knife against you.
It might be. Yeah.
You can look it up. But this is the problem of these kinds of debates about when we just choose, this is a better way,
No, I think statistically we can easily say that guns are causing more damage than knives. I'm sorry. Like, it's not, in the end of the day, we all have a story about somebody who got more hurt by a knife, but like
I don't.
On a mass level, and that's what we're talking about here and making mass level changes.
Yeah, there's no mass knife stabbings except
there was in China.
To make a point, like in Israel.
There are in Israel sometimes, but that's specific.
That's actually maybe an argument. In a way, that's an argument in weird favor of regulation, because only from the perspective of
they would use guns if they could.
That's right. Exactly. So it's the sense of like
isn't that always the case
walls,
though? Why would anyone
use? There are checkpoints. There are this. The reason they're using cars is because
they have nothing else.
That's all they have in that sense.
Yeah.
Because everything else has been taken except for the car.
Yeah. Right. So why wouldn't that work everywhere though? Why wouldn't that work better in the US as well? Like to limit.
Well, do we want to live? Well, so that's a question. Weird counterpoint here, but like, do we want to live under that kind of security too? Because in order for Israel to make it to the point that only, and we're talking in terms of,
there's like security in malls. Like you go through a metal detector to go into a mall, which I mean,
we do for airports.
How many checkpoints do you want to go through in order to ensure that guns aren't being moved around? How often do you want to?
Honestly,
I mean, I wouldn't mind. I'm going to be honest. I wouldn't.
For safety, I think it actually might be. Look, I hate going to the airport security and everything. Like, it sucks, but it's been safer since. Let's be honest. It's been a lot safer.
I didn't say at the airport. I just mean in general.
I know, but I'm saying I know it in terms of the airport. So if you started applying more safety measures elsewhere, it'd be annoying, but you would be safer for sure. Statistically, you're going to start catching things and stopping things more easily. I do have an idea for how we can solve this issue a little bit more in the future. But the problem is, I don't think it exists right now. But as someone who enjoys sci-fi, and I mean, it exists to some degree, like there's tasers and stuff, but I think we just need weapons that stun instead of kill. Yeah. Like if you can shoot somebody and it knocks them out or whatever, but it doesn't kill them, and that's how we start attacking people. It's like, even if there's a mistake, they're fine. you know?
And there
Although
are
stun
certain
guns
things
can
like
still
that.
like very much hurt people. But
Well, stun guns don't exist right now in the way that I'm imagining.
wait, no, what are those stun
Tasers.
Tasers, whatever. That's what I
Tasers can kill, but they're not a gun. The tasers actually shoot
No,
a
they're
thing
not a
out.
gun. I know.
There's like a
They shoot prongs.
yeah, and
It's an electric.
And you have to
you have to aim it correctly.
Yeah, first of all, you have to get it right the first time, right? So
Yeah.
you don't want to be there reloading a whole cartridge or it comes back, whatever. Although you can actually use, once you shoot it, in theory, there's like ones that you can detach and you can use it. So the difference between the taser and the stun gun is that the stun gun, you physically have to hold it to them, to the whatever your attacker, and it's only going to be working when you're physically on them.
Mm.
Unlike movies and things like that where they're stunned and they just fall over and they collapse. It's like an electric shock. You're just going, and then like you're done.
Right.
Well, it depends. People react very differently to being stunned by a taser. Some people,
Oh, you could kill someone with them. You can give someone a heart attack. Like, It's not a
Exactly.
joke. I'm just saying.
you can, but
That's what- yeah.
there are people out there where you tase them and they just keep walking, and it's like, what the hell? Like, it's doing nothing to this person, and then another person, it knocks them out.
What you're saying, there's people like that. I'm saying most, if it's here's the difference. So if it's a stun gun, they're not going to be fighting you when you're touching them. But the second you're done, they could. And there's been cases of even, let's say, thieves who have been subdued by like a group of people, and that person could have a heart attack because you might be doing it 5 times to them, right? So that's not good.
Sure. I mean, look, but again, looking at the worst case scenario of using a taser, it's obviously still safer technically than a gun.
Just a point of clarification. So the stun gun, you have to physically hold. Taser, you can shoot it. It has prongs that will attach, and they're meant to attach like to certain clothing. Clothing can be an issue too. Did it attach the whole way? And once that thing is actually secured, as many times as you pull or hold the trigger, you are tasing them. So that's how that.
I'm looking for like a Star Trek-y, Stargate-y type of stun gun. You know what I'm talking about? Like, I'm looking for one of these types of things. You can shoot a little energy thing and the person just gets knocked out. I think that would be very.
There is something that was actually shown in Minority Report. They had these 6 sticks. They kind of stick someone with a stick and he just like throws up.
Yeah.
Makes them really cool. Well, there are such things that are being developed where, shooting some kind of pulse or whatever could just make you terribly sick. And there's also ones that are just extremely disorienting. So it has to do with light and just,
Oh, yeah. There's like a light that you can also blind people. Yeah. Temporarily.
And there's also ones that have this kind of like sound, I don't know,
like directional
focus sound thing.
Sound. Okay.
Yeah. And it can just basically, totally disorient. If it's pointed at the right way, you are like,
that's cool.
You are done. But it won't,
I mean, it's not cool, but that sounds like a nice alternative.
Yeah.
Like a lovely alternative. Have you guys seen, this is related, but not to exactly what we're talking about. But have you seen the, so Sacha Baron Cohen has a sketch, like in part of his America stuff, like the Kindergartens.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
Who is America sketches, right?
Yeah, Who is America?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the Kindergartens, and he's like, yes, we arm our kindergartners, like 4-year-olds. And it's basically like the idea of giving everyone a gun taken to the extreme. Like,
yeah, he's pointing out the absurdity of it. Yeah.
How absurd that idea is.
And the craziest part is that it was the right-wing people he was talking to who were totally on board.
There were Americans being like, that's a great idea. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, this is the part that I'm a little conflicted on, to be honest. So my mom was a public school teacher, and the idea of Marta, who's an amazing school teacher. So I want to put that out there, not just any public school teacher.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not just saying this because she's my mom, but like was legitimately like that person. She, brought in her guitar and she'd do like folk songs with the kids, and she had 20 plus children and teaching them to read and do math despite like all kinds of crazy circumstances, and really just going the extra mile. Like that was her. Sometimes she'd be in the school till after hours till like 10 p.m.
Man, public school teachers, like
both your moms are teachers, isn't that cool?
Elementary school teachers are honestly incredible at baseline. Like that's pretty.
No, but
really little kids, I don't know how. Anyways,
so when I say that, the context of me saying that is not just shout out to Marta, but it's also
shout out to Marta.
Not to Marta. It's also that the idea of public school teachers who had, let's say, their own weapon that was, even if there was a way to make it super secure, and that they were very well trained, so that if there was a shooter, they could take down that shooter, or at least be a deterrent. So here's the thing. This is where I'm conflicted on it, because one, that's not Marta. Okay. Marta was literally at Woodstock, and she's probably one of the best teachers that you could hope to have for your kid. She would not be someone who could defend children with a gun, period. Just wouldn't happen. Okay. So you lose Marta and all the other Martas. Then there's the other part of me that goes, well, here's the part that is kind of uncomfortable. The reality is that most shooters, especially school shooters, do stop once confronted. Like almost immediately. They're either going to shoot themselves or they're going to go out with a bang, but they're not trying to live much longer, just statistically speaking. So we talk about like the whole, as we were earlier, we look at like the whole picture of it. Confronting shooters is a good thing. That's how we found out from Columbine. So here's the issue. On that level, it actually makes a lot of sense for teachers to, if there is a soft target like this and we do want to protect children and we know the police can take even just minutes too long, and we know that sometimes, like in the case of Uvalde, like they're not going in, or even in the case of the one that just happened where they did go in, all the damage was already done, like I said, within the first 5-10 minutes. So in theory, not as crazy as it sounds to have teachers who know how to use weapons. In reality, we lose a lot of good teachers.
I disagree so vehemently, and I know what you're saying. Like, and you even qualified it and said, like, I understand it's not these types of teachers or whatever, but that's not a teacher's job, and it's perpetuating the problem. Because what's going to happen is, even if you get some teachers you can train to use a gun, more likely than not, their gun is going to get taken out of their desk drawer.
Yep.
By another kid, and they're going to shoot other kids with that much more often
at some point
than them stopping a school shooting.
I don't know about much more often.
Also, like, schools are chaos. Like, there's so much chaos and like issues with, you don't want that in there. You don't want to.
Guns are not something you inject into the school.
Yeah, but Josh, you can't say much more often than not because you're talking about deterrence, right? So it is true that schools are chosen because they're...
So fake guns is all they need.
Schools are chosen because it's one of... If you can get in, God forbid, and I say you, but like if a shooter can get in, they have free reign.
Yeah.
Like there really is not going to be a lot of...
Okay, but that's why we're talking about regulating guns and trying to deal with this thing. But giving teachers guns, no, then you need security guards that actually do their fucking job, right?
Well, but that's kind of the same, right? So then
And it's to solve a problem that we shouldn't have in the first place, is not to
so then
give the teachers guns.
Well, again, it doesn't have to be teachers per se. But then I would also agree with that, okay, well, maybe every public school needs to have not just one, not just two, maybe like 5 armed security at all times.
Maybe they do now, and that's stupid, but maybe.
And it's very expensive.
And maybe that's something the government has to...
But why not? But why is that such a... I feel like you can't have it both ways, where it's like, we don't want to have guns around children, obviously, and we don't want children being shot. But why is there, and this is kind of, in my opinion, on the left, if you will, or more liberal attitudes on, well, we just shouldn't have armed people in schools, because what about the way that guns could get, someone can misuse that? Or what happens when a security guard decides to shoot people up?
Armed people is very different than armed teachers. Like, Aya, can you imagine your mom, Maura, Nikki?
Well, I can imagine other teachers
taking down some shooter with a gun. Maybe your mom, I think she could do it, but like...
I don't know about my mom like that.
I can actually imagine a few of my teachers, by the way, for the record.
There are some teachers, yeah.
I can imagine them shooting a kid just because they're frustrated. Something like Mrs. Delaney, Aya. I'm pretty sure she would have just shot a kid for other reasons.
She would wield it. She would be like,
she'd be like,
I've got a gun here, everybody. Oh, hey, park your pants, Littman. What'd she call you? Yeah.
She was
park your pants, Littman.
But I don't know, Josh. Do you really think if that was the case? Kind of like in the, by the way, in the airport. Let's say El Al, for instance. One of the ways that El Al dealt with hijackings is that they put a bunch of what do you call it? They're not in uniform. They're
yeah. I know what you mean.
Oh, like those
air marshals.
Yeah, they're hidden in
air marshals and
they can be dressed like regular people and whatever. And
wait, and my uncle was an air marshal.
Jacob, are you saying that we should have a bunch of like little people, like dwarves, pretend to be kids, but they're actually they've got guns on them?
Now there's an idea for a movie.
And then we put them in classes, and if ever anybody tries to
is that a real movie? Is that already a movie? If not, you should go for it, you guys.
But all joking aside, do you think that would be a deterrence?
Would it be?
Not the dwarves, but just in general.
Well, where would they be? They're just guards.
Having like security.
They're just security.
So there are some security. So okay, so at a high school that I've been at, there is a security guard. I don't know if she had a gun, but she...
I mean, you're in Canada, so it's less of a thing.
Again, yeah,
but I'm saying the thing about so the guards, I mean, again, there was a recent shooting. I think it was actually I think it was the private school shooting. Our private schools do have security. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she shot the security guard almost immediately and then had free reign. So again, I know it's very controversial to say, but like maybe the people in the classroom with the students should be the ones who have access.
I don't think so.
But like,
I don't think so.
It's not as crazy to say. It's not a crazy statement.
I'm just saying, like, the chaos of a school, the potential chaos. I'm like, kids, if they know that there's a gun in the school, like that,
I agree,
is more terrifying to me in some ways.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
All these, any kind of little kids, you've got the whole like, we don't maybe recognize the potential danger here.
I'd rather have a bunch of gas that could be released that knocks everybody out in the school. Yeah. Have you considered that?
Gas the children.
Gosh.
Although then they're wearing gas masks, so only the children get knocked out. Maybe that doesn't work.
That's a terrifying concept, by the way.
Yeah. I know. I
Especially
don't know.
considering that there are drills.
Oh yeah, the shooter drills and everything that people have to go through now. Like,
well, you guys do. So we don't do those.
I didn't do it.
So this makes the US sound so much worse. Sorry. Like, there are reasons I would probably never live there. And that's really high on the list, is like how many people with guns there are and how much of an issue this actually is. Like, there are things that you're mentioning that I'm like, what? That's craziness. Like, why? How is that still an issue?
To be fair, I don't know if I've ever seen a gun since I've moved here.
Okay, all right. Well,
But
we had fire drills.
No, wait. Actually, no. I do have a friend who once picked up. I won't name them, but I was driving with him, and he stopped somewhere. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I just got to grab something real fast." And we parked at the side of the road by another car, and there was a little trade, and apparently he just bought a gun off somebody and put it in the trunk. I'm like, "Do we have an illegal gun in the car with us right now?" And he's like, "Yep."
sorry, he just like went and like, boop, got a gun.
He met with somebody and bought their gun off them.
That's so weird. And you guys don't have. Yeah, I just can't. Yeah.
So that's the time, yeah, where I was like, why am I here? I don't want to be a party to this.
Yeah, here you are.
But in general, I don't come. It's not like I come across gun. It's true that sometimes.
By the way, you're supposed to end the story like that with allegedly, especially on a podcast.
Allegedly.
Allegedly that happened in one of your stories.
Well, I didn't say who.
Well,
yeah, allegedly.
Yeah.
Maybe they're dead now. Who knows? I don't know.
Allegedly.
I don't know. They had a gun to protect themselves, so they should still be alive, right? Isn't that how that
Yeah,
works?
that's why I know. I'm pretty sure they got rid of it anyways.
This has been very interesting, though. I appreciate hearing like a slightly different, because honestly, initially when we were talking about like doing a gun control thing, I was like, what is there to say? We're just going to be like, guns are bad. And this has been a lot more interesting than I imagined, if I'm going to be honest. Like watching you two also argue, like not argue, but like banter is very entertaining.
And I also want to say also that your contribution to this has been great too. Like, I just want to be clear
that that's okay. It's been minimal because I also don't know a lot of statistics, and I think I also have an emotional reaction to a lot of these things, which is, I think, a valid reaction because
yes.
people should be that way. But like,
to be fair, Josh and I did make Active Shooter.
Right. Yeah, that's fair.
The film. And, you know, we've talked about this so many times in different contexts, and it's changed over the years. And, you know, literally the amount of shootings that have happened in between, I mean, it's just had a life of its own.
Right.
Unfortunately.
It's like a discussion that has progressed over the years, basically. And you guys have had this a lot.
Not gotten any less topical, unfortunately.
No.
You know what the weird thing is? And we always feel weird about this. Whenever there's a shooting, there's an uptick in views on our movie on YouTube.
Oh, man.
It's like, yay. Know, like,
yeah, that's rough.
It's like weirdly, sadly topical all the time. Like, again, I can almost guarantee you there will be another shooting by the time this gets released, or a bunch of them. I mean, that is something to address one way or another. We've talked about different ways we can do that. I think that there's a bunch that we are in agreement on. And I think even Jacob's like more devil's advocate-y view, we'll call it, about some of this stuff, and the fact that he is also just more, he understands the culture in America better.
I mean, patriotic American.
Well,
correct.
You know, but you're also a very like nuanced person, and you like getting into the nitty gritty of details and law. Maybe it's having a rabbi for a dad, but like you love that kind of Talmudic.
Yeah, he's the Rashi of gun control.
The Rashi or Rambam of gun control. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I understand why it's important to go into that nitty gritty. Whereas personally, like, I sometimes get frustrated that I think that that's a distraction from doing the most straight, like, I think of things like a priority list of what we have to do and address first. And it ends up just being a bunch of like a shooting happens, and then there's a bunch of talk and a bunch of media discussing there's a mental health, there's a this, there's the gun control, and then nothing happens. And then there's another shooting, and then the same thing happens. It's a cycle where nothing is changing because nobody, in my opinion, this gun culture has gone too far. And we have to talk about what we can feasibly do if we care about stopping this number one killer of people, of kids in America. That's why I think it was good that we could agree on at least some regulation, and hopefully this country will be able to agree on some level of regulation that can help address this as well.
Yes, we feel the divide between a center-left person, myself, and a left person, yourself.
Yeah, I don't even know.
So we've managed to find consensus between us.
Yeah. I mean, look, I hate going like I'm left and you're right or you're center. Those labels themselves start to make us think we have to fall in line with something, which is, problematic. But I just know that you and I talk about this all the time, because not just because we live in America, but because we're making the feature version of that short.
Oh, you are? That's exciting.
I mean, we've written it and we're trying to get it produced, right?
Cool. And in circulation.
In the feature version, the dad goes to the school to stop his son.
Spoiler alert.
No spoilers, Josh.
That's not a spoiler.
Spoilers.
It's not a spoiler. That's
Josh, my top pet peeves are injustice injustice.
Okay.
Something else.
And it is an
And
injustice, by the
spoilers.
way.
Yeah.
Irrationality, okay?
Irrationality.
No, it's not actually. She's joking. It's not a real
So
spoiler.
when we talked about pet peeves,
That's what the
Josh's
feature is
top
about.
3 pet peeves were like irrationality, hypocrisy, and spoilers. And it was like,
I know Josh does this all the time where it's always anytime that he does something that I swear, the exact same scenario in another way where someone says, but that's not a spoiler. Josh would say, well, now I know that it's a spoiler because you said it's not a spoiler. So now I'm going to be thinking that the whole time.
Josh.
And that is literally what you would
So
say.
then that was a spoiler.
It's not a spoiler though.
Okay, to be fair though, we're not talking about a movie we haven't seen. This is our script. When we pitch it the way we want to pitch it.
So it is a spoiler.
No, it's what the movie's about. It's about a dad going to
Okay.
stop his son.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The short is about a father who suspects his son is a school
Yeah.
shooter.
Wait, have you seen it? Have you seen the short film?
I have yet to watch it.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not one of the 12 million.
Let her watch the short film.
Yeah, watch the short.
I'll watch
Yeah.
the short film.
Let her watch it.
Yeah. I've heard about it multiple times, but I haven't watched
There's
it.
no actual spoiler here because this is literally what the feature is about.
Oh, that's what the description, like the synopsis is going to say as well.
That's true.
I mean, we probably will keep the synopsis similarly. It's about a dad who suspects his son is a school shooter.
Mhm.
But like basically that's the action of the movie, you know?
Mhm.
So off of that, so let her watch the short film.
Yeah.
But one thing that I did want to circle back to was the concept of, what about the government coming in and seizing weapons and that whole fear, whether it's a phobia, whether it's the reality. Some would say, we just have to look at history. Other people say, well, times are different. But the concept of what about a militarized state and the rights of citizens to defend themselves? Because all we've talked about so far is self-defense on a personal level, which is where I think, has a lot of merits. And then other than school shootings, but what about in the sense of putting that aside specifically? What if there was a government military situation that was not democratic or just?
Right.
Yeah. So here's the context of that right now. You really think that even if that were to happen, that a bunch of people with their guns are going to be able to stop a bunch of tanks and nukes that the government has anyway?
Like in Ukraine?
I mean, it's better than nothing. I'm hesitant to agree on the side of guns, but like it is better than nothing. And like anytime you see anything that's like, a post-apocalyptic universe where like some militia has taken over, you're a lot better off having those, which is maybe part of the issue is that we keep imagining these situations where like,
well, when that happens, then everyone can start learning how to use a gun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's not happening right now.
That's not happening yet. Yeah.
But if they don't have, well, there's the thing is, when do you know? Right. So you said, well, what are the chances that you could just take down the entire military with some dinky rifles and pistols and some
I know there's some examples in the past.
improvised bombs? And it's like, okay, well, what about Afghanistan? Because I don't remember the Taliban using tanks ever or artillery or airplanes.
Yeah, but they're a lot more on the same level in Afghanistan. Whereas like here, it's such a divide.
What do you mean on the same level?
So imagine it's a war zone.
I'm saying that the people fighting the government there.
Oh, the people fighting the government are.
I'm saying they're using a lot of the same equipment back and forth. That's just not the case here in the United States. The government is already, and the military has already got like technology we don't even understand or know about.
Wait, when you're saying using the same, I'm talking about the Taliban versus the U.S. Army.
Okay, sure. But even then,
Yeah,
okay,
okay.
sure. But
They beat us.
It's not like they're
small arms. That's all they got.
They're not really winning in that regard. It's just that it's that America can't win against them.
Josh, it's a Taliban state right now.
No,
Sorry,
but they won.
but like they won.
They
Yeah,
won.
because America pulled out and decided to stop.
But why?
After so many years, because
they shouldn't have done it in the first place. Yeah.
Because the grind.
Well, but like it's a different type of warfare that was using those.
It's guerrilla warfare.
Yeah,
Yes.
Exactly. Guerrilla warfare is totally different.
Yes, we would have to, in that situation. So I think it's interesting from a few perspectives. One is that it's not, we say, well, what's the chances of that or whatever? And not to get political, but like we had a very recent last election thing where if it was a little different, maybe could have been so contentious that people might have got out into the streets, right? What if in Congress they really had broken in and that one security guard didn't kind of wave them the wrong way and half of Congress was just butchered and Mike Pence was hanging? And do you think that would just like only remain there? What kind of ripple effect could that have caused, right? And then what if there was a question on who was president?
I'm not so naive to say that like you can't have a state oppress its people because it's happened in the past many times and it can definitely happen again. But using that as a potential excuse for everybody having tons of guns that are constantly getting everyone killed it's not good enough. You know what I mean?
No, I'm saying
I do agree on that.
Well, in that dichotomy, sure. But at the same time, I think that it's not so unrealistic to say that that's possible. I feel like if anything, it comes off almost like for lack of a better word, there's like a privilege, I think, as being an American and Canadian to say like, well, our democracy is so robust that that will totally hold. And we've seen already how, you know, it doesn't take that much. It takes really good social media marketing and a charismatic leader to push that to the edge of what's acceptable. And by the luck and stupidity of some people, you know, things didn't work out. But if someone was a little bit more cunning, I don't know.
I think you're right, Jacob. I think that a lot of Americans and the Taliban have a lot in common. They both love taking their guns and shooting bullets in the air, forgetting that bullets also eventually come down.
I mean, like the thing is, there are issues.
Well,
Like,
are you okay with the government? I mean, you're joking. I know it's a funny joke, but at the same time, when you say like, well, the government will have all the weapons and it's a done deal anyways, what if it was the government that you didn't really like or support? Are you just going to be okay with that? You're just going to be
No,
like,
then
okay, well, I'm
look,
just,
if you have to have an uprising against the government because the government's being
how?
oppressive, I understand that. But I don't think the answer is give everyone a gun right now. I don't think it is.
But how?
yeah, I do think because we have to deal with like the laws that are made and the regulations that are made are done based on the world that we have right now, not based on what might happen potentially.
Yes.
The thing that is happening constantly is school shootings and mass shootings. The thing that might happen, and you're right, and it might happen, and we've seen like hints of potential issues like that. And in that case, also the people with the guns were the ones that we would have wanted to take the guns away from anyways. But like,
Maybe.
we still have to focus. Well, okay.
Depends.
We still have to focus on like what the actual issue, like who is dying right now and whose guns can we take away for that.
I agree. It's a deflection. It seems like another deflection. Like, hey, maybe we shouldn't deal with this issue right now because in the future the state could oppress us. It's like, bro, like that's something to deal with in a different way at a different time.
Yeah.
Right? Clearly, we have an issue that we need to deal with right here, right now, and we're doing a bad job of addressing it. And there's all these hypotheticals of what could happen, or I heard a story of this happening to somebody, or in the past this happened. Doesn't help us. It actually just keeps people from doing action, from creating action that will solve the issue, right? And if we have to also work in a way for us to be able to fight oppression, which, by the way, I still don't think that a bunch of people in America with their guns are going to be very effective against what America has in America, like the military and all that stuff.
So this is where I'll challenge you on it. Two things. One, in the American Revolution, the first thing they did, they had weapons, but they didn't have the type of weapons the British had, right? The British were the military. There was American militias. They had served in the French and Indian War. They had experience, right? George Washington was a British soldier before he was George Washington, the revolutionary. But the first thing they did was they stormed and took as many weapons as they could from the government. So number one, you still need weapons in order to take the government's weapons. There isn't this dichotomy between that. Secondly, it's funny how we say, well, the ones who have the guns are the ones who probably be our enemy anyways. Those would be the crazy ones. Well, the irony of it is that maybe that's not so black and white, because in a situation where there is a government takeover that's considered tyrannical on that level, probably the ones who are most likely to be on your side within the military, right, are going to be the ones who already aren't really in favor of a tyrannical government, which might be your more conservative neighbors. Ironically enough, those might be the people that you oddly go, maybe they got something going on.
Have you seen The Last of Us?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh, it's kind of like a weirdly similar situation where instead of it's the government oppressing you, it's basically zombies around everywhere right now.
Yeah.
But it could happen. And in that case, that one guy who was stockpiling weapons and being anti-government his whole time is like exactly the guy you want on your side.
Yeah.
Sure, I understand that.
Well, because he's right in this moment.
I think I had that in my mind when I was thinking of stockpiling people not being. I was like, no, but it worked out in Last of Us. I think my brain was going there in that, like, as long as it's
well, a broken clock can be right twice.
But I also don't think we're going to get rid of all guns. It's like you can still get, look, if this happens, people could still have access to guns. Just make the access harder in a legal sense, right? But if the oppression starts happening, then people are going to, well, I guess they're going to fight back by not caring about the regulations in the first place when they go and use those weapons to fight back. So the weapons will still exist to a degree, right? And people can still access them then. But we're talking about making the access harder now, right? So I don't think it's feasible to just literally take away all the guns right now in the country.
And by the way, you would need guns to take away all the guns, in the sense that in that scenario, you will have to send in, because you know, like someone who's
like SWAT teams, right? It's not like a guy with a gun being like, "Give me your gun." Like those would be operations.
yeah. So in the
basically.
beginning, I would
Yeah.
assume you would have to do a buyback program,
Right. You were saying that.
and there'd be some voluntary, and then there'd be a percentage of people that I guess over time would voluntarily do this or that, or just be afraid that there was a law that passed that, hey, you know, it's illegal now, and then there'd be another percentage that are just like, come and try.
What did Australia do?
Well, Australia did a buyback program, and it was fairly successful. They also have just a different population and size, and again, culture and amount and layout even.
What was the result after they did this?
What will you tell me?
They went from having school shootings and shootings or whatever to having no shootings.
They had one mass shooting, and then they were like, nope, and that was it.
And then it was done.
That seems great. Well, there we go.
But they also had one, you know, so there's a question on, yeah, that worked in a sense, but it could have been as fluky as there are countries that don't do that, that also have just a few. Why is America having so many anyways? It's not, you see what I'm saying? Like,
it's part of the culture.
Right, but Australia didn't have a culture of these shootings.
More so than they do now. Once they started they immediately went, it's kind of like, you know, the whole Kinder Egg thing here, right? A kid choked on a piece of plastic or whatever, and now it's like they banned this chocolate.
Oh, is that why there's no more Kinder Eggs?
Is that what it is?
I've been looking for those for months.
It depends where it is. I think in the US, right, they banned that. And it's like, okay, we're willing to immediately discontinue or ban something if it causes any little bit of harm to a few people even,
right,
or potentially cause harm, except when it comes to guns. It's just the common senseness of it is crazy to me. But
overall, it's not like we don't have regulation, just to be clear. We have regulation.
We have very shitty regulation, in my opinion.
It's not like we don't have no regulation, just to be clear.
There's not no regulation, but I think a lot of the regulation is also kind of lip service. You can get around it. There's the gun show loopholes and all that stuff where you can go buy a bunch of guns from somebody at a gun show and get around any regulation there. There's all kinds of easy ways to access guns in the United States.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
What do you say we wrap this conversation up?
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, thanks for coming on, Jacob. It was nice to meet you as well.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. And getting to see someone interact with Josh in that way was also entertaining, because sometimes I feel like I'm kind of being like the devil's advocate a lot with him. Or I don't know. Is that true? Or you're being, whatever.
I don't know. We played both roles.
It was fun. It's been fun.
It's been a blast.
It's been a blast.
No.
This has been another episode of Adulthood Friends. Thank you for listening. This was episode 58 of Adulthood Friends on gun violence. If you enjoyed this, please follow us on Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, YouTube apparently now as well, and whatever other platform you might have heard us on.
We're on all the platforms.
Actually, I've been getting all these notifications that people are following us on Facebook all of a sudden.
Oh.
So I don't know what's going on there. It's weird.
And YouTube, Active Shooter, the short film.
There you go.
Yeah.
Which I have not yet watched, but I totally will.
Active Shooter parentheses short film.
Oh, Aya, you need to watch it now.
I need to watch it. So it'll be 12 million and one finally, because you've been waiting.
It's not 12 million. It's like getting up to 12.5 million, I think now.
Okay. Well,
yeah,
12.5 plus 1 million coming up.
But yeah, Jacob, thank you. Hopefully we'll have you on to talk about other stuff sometimes. And how do we usually end this thing, Aya?
Usually we're talking and Josh cuts up. Blah, blah, blah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I hope you feel better soon.
Feel better.
Thanks for listening, and bye.